This was set to be an exciting year for champion releases in League, but did they live up to the hype? In this tier list video, I'm going to be ranking each of the 6 champions against each other, with a special focus on the potential the character brings to the Riot MMO. Hey everyone, welcome to my 2022 champion tier list. I'm going a little bit off piece for this video. I'm just going to be talking over my thoughts regarding the new champions this year, and ranking them all in a tier list. I'm a League player at heart, and it's how I was first introduced to the world of Runeterra, and is the primary reason why I'm excited for the upcoming Riot MMO. So of course I've been following all the champion releases, and have my own thoughts on how they have landed. Now obviously my content is focused on the upcoming Riot MMO, so one of the ways that I'm ranking the champions is based on what they add to the world of Runeterra, and how much impact I think that they will have on the MMO itself. But before I get into that, I'm just going to give a brief summary of each of the champions released this year, by talking about their lore, their champion design, and their release into League. Let's start with Zeri. Released in January, Zeri uses electric magic to both charge herself and zap her enemies. Representing the good guys in Zorn, Zeri, much like Echo, shows us that people are a bit fed up with the Chem Barons ruling without a care for the working class. She's youthful and inexperienced, but a great addition to the champion roster, as her liveliness is refreshing to the mostly bleak landscape of Zorn. Her League release was rocky to say the least. Absolutely beyond broken on release. Zeri received nerf after nerf after nerf, and then when she was buffed, she went to be nerfed again. Riot couldn't find a good spot for her at all. Right now she's pretty much unplayable, but they are working on fixes to revive her in a more balanced spot. Renata Glass took to the Rift in February of this year, and the girlbot of Zorn has been dominating the support position ever since. In many ways, the dichotomy of Zeri, Renata is one of the more powerful Chem Barons in Zorn, and uses her refined purple Chem tech to control her enemies, often using them to do her bidding. Now one of the richest people in Zorn, she uses her status to make pawns of those in the city, and even uses her substances to manipulate those above in Piltover. Renata was released in a much better state than Zeri and fits a perfect niche of an anti-engage enchanter that's weak to other enchanters. Her kit was really refreshing and her slew of unique mechanics made her really fun to play, but not so much against. Regardless, she's a fantastic addition to the roster of champions in League. Belveth, the Empress of the Void, was released as a jungler in June. Another unique champion to the game with a special utilisation of the Void neutral objectives. Belveth has left a huge impact on Summoner's Rift since her release. As the physical manifestation of an entire city of life, consumed by the corruption of the Void, Belveth is all-powerful and all-knowing, and it's only a matter of time before she poses a threat to the entire world of Runeterra. Released in July, the waterbending warrior Neither seeks out the deadliest opponents to test her vast strength against. Winning her powers after an encounter with the primordial demon of joy, Neither can no longer feel any other emotion than jubilation, which is but a small price to pay for her power. Neither's played in League as a melee bot laner, a trait unique to only a few characters who are played in the bot lane. This was what Riot set out to do when creating the character, but many have found her kit to be boring or lackluster and too similar to other characters in the role, so she hasn't left much of a splash as maybe Riot would have liked. Udyr is a classic champion to League, and many were excited to see the direction that Riot would take the Shaman's basic but unique kit. When Udyr charged onto the Rift in August, few were disappointed with the job that Riot did to revitalise the champion's abilities and thematic. However, there were complaints levied towards the lack of character growth that Udyr received upon his re-release, which left many lore fans disappointed. The final champion released in 2022, K'Sante brought with him a brand new location of Nezuma, and new life to the continent of Shurima. As a tank top, K'Sante has been leaving his mark on players, but has actually remained in a balanced state, with players still figuring out how best to play him. To learn more about K'Sante's lore, I'd recommend watching my video about the character and how I think his release will have a heavy influence on the Riot MMO. I'll link that in the description below. So, with that out of the way, I'm going to be ranking each of the champions based on different criteria. First, I'm going to rank characters based on their lore and story. Then, I'm going to rank them based on what they add to the world and the potential that they bring to the Riot MMO. Then I'm going to rank them based on their gameplay and champion kit design. Then, I'm going to rank them based on whether I think Riot allowed them to reach their full potential. Then, I'm going to rank them overall, taking into account all of the different previous rankings at the same time. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. I'm putting Zeri into B tier for her lore. While she's a fantastic character and I love her design, and kind of what she brings to both Zorn, I really don't think her lore is that unique, and it still needs to be fleshed out. I think through other avenues the player can explore Zarya in a much better way, but I'll get onto that later. For me, Renata's going into A. I think right now she's a little bit underutilised, but this character is fantastic. By underutilised I mean she's not really been explored too much in the world as of yet. As a Chem Baroness, she's kind of blends into the other Chem Barons, and although she's the only playable one right now and the only one we know lots about, she still feels kind of like something that's not new to the world. But overall her story's great. I love how she's such a girl boss and she like manipulates all the people around her. I love how she's kind of like impacting Piltover as well, currently in her lore, and kind of tying those two cities together. I think it's a really fantastic addition to the game. Balvest is going to B. I like Balvest's lore. I love how Riot turned her into a city. That was crazy. Basically, it was revealed that Balveth completely consumed the entire city when she was formed, and her manifestation is kind of like of all the matter and characters and life that was within the city, and that's kind of what she's made out of. I think that's a brilliant kind of like character design. But I still think she needs to be kind of like, I think she kind of just feels like a void character right now, and she needs to kind of be developed a little bit more so she's able to go up the rankings. I'm putting Neither into C tier. She doesn't really feel like she can get any lower than that, but she's not any better than that either. I think Neither kind of feels like a little bit of an odd one out in terms of this year of League. She doesn't really develop onto anything that we've already got before, which is what I like in champions. Some stuff that develops on things that we know about, but also brings new flavour. She brings a little bit of new flavour, but it doesn't really feel that impactful to the world. Yes, she's affiliated with the Primordial Demon of Joy, kind of like how Fiddlesticks is of Fear. But I don't know, we don't know much about the Demon of Joy really, only what we learned from Neither's bio. And that part of her kit isn't really like shown that well in terms of her design. So, I don't know, I'm not overly keen on her lore. I think it can be developed, and I think she can be a great character, but when paired with others. So on her own, I don't really rate her too highly. Udyr's rework lore, I think Udyr belongs in B. Have you received new stories about Udyr, and perhaps new development to the Freljord alongside his release? It would have been a fantastic character release. But because we kind of only received older content and refreshed again, I don't think he warrants being anywhere above a B. Udyr's lore is great. I love how his current lore ties him together with Lee Sin in Ionia, as both people who manipulate the spirits and gods to try and use their powers. They're kind of similar in that aspect. They're both spiritualists, and whereas Udyr's a shaman, Lee Sin's obviously a dragon monk. But they're kind of similar in that way. I love his refreshed identity to reintroduce the Freljordian gods into his kit as kind of like lore, but that kind of impacts more of his gameplay, which I'll talk about later on. And to perhaps the surprise of no one who's watched my other video on Cassante, I'm putting him into S tier for lore. I think his lore this year was absolutely brilliant. I love how they've added a whole new layer to Shurima, kind of like this new society in Nazuma, along with Cassante leading it now. And not only did they give us the city of Nazuma, this kind of like new state of democracy and a well-developed society, they also gave Cassante a great backstory and kind of showing us through his trials and tribulations to get to be the figurehead of the city that he is today. I think he's a fantastic character design, and I'm really looking forward to see what they'll do with him next. Okay, so we're going to move on to champion design now. This is mostly going to be about their kind of in-game kit. I want to talk a little bit about how their lore is represented in their kit, but that's really going to come into play when I talk about whether they met their full potential, but I will give brief reference to it here. So starting off with Zeri again, I'm going to put Zeri once again in B tier. I love Zeri's kit. I think her design was fantastic, and probably out of all of the 6 characters released this year, I think her kit is the most inventive, and I think the most fun for me personally. So why is she high, you may ask? Well, anyone who's actually played League this year knows that Zeri is an absolute menace, and there's absolutely no chance that I am ranking her any higher than B after the disaster launch that she had. Nerf after nerf after nerf. Riot couldn't really find a good place for her. There was a point where her W was one-shotting people through turrets. Yeah, absolute disaster release. Like I said, I love her kit. Right now she's pretty much unplayable. She's like 40% win rate, probably less at this point. And yeah, I can't rank her any higher than B, but I do really love her design, and I can't wait to play her again when she's in a more balanced state. I'm going to be putting Renata in A again, so I'm right now following the trend of the previous list. I love Renata's kit. I think it's fantastic. I think her two unique mechanics are great additions to League. You could even probably say her Q is also a unique mechanic with kind of like the way that she can hold back an enemy. It really fits the niche, like I said earlier, of her being an anti-engaged enchanter, but she does struggle against other enchanters, so she has weaknesses. Her ultimate is a fantastic ability, the best single mechanic I think released this year. I'm going to double down on that. It was the best single release mechanic of this year. Her ult, if you didn't know, if the enemy is hit by the ultimate, they will turn and attack the nearest character, so that can be even allies. So Renata can make enemies turn on other enemies, basically causing like chaos on the rift. It's a great ultimate. She's a fantastic champion, and she hasn't really been that overpowered so far. The reason that Renata's not S is because a champion that sits at S is just far and beyond the best one released this year, and I can't rank them in the same tier. But as you will see, Renata is kind of up there on the pedestal. Bel'Veth, I'm going to put straight into B tier for her champion kit. Bel'Veth's kit is really great. It's very unique for one, which I always like, and it allows for unique interactions in the game, which is also a really, really good part of their kit. I don't really want to get into this too much now, but I don't think she really fulfills the void fantasy that perhaps Riot were looking for with the character. The teasers kind of suggested with Bel'Veth that we were going to get someone that can mind control people, but you don't really get that at all, really. That's more of Renata's gimmick. The fact that I don't have much to say about Bel'Veth's champion design kind of shows up why she's B, but she's not bad by any means, but at the same time, she's not very good, I don't think. I'm putting Neither into C. Now, obviously people might disagree with this, but this is subjective. I don't really like her design. She feels very much just like a worse Samira to me. For those who don't know, Samira is another AD carry, a bot laner, in League, except she's ranged, whereas Neither's melee. Neither was compensated to be a melee bot laner, kind of similar to Yasuo, by giving her extra XP when she's paired in the bot lane, but this has completely just removed any flexibility that the champion might have to play other lanes. And I think playing top Neither could be quite exciting, but Riot's really limited her to playing bot lane because of its mechanic. And like I said, she's very similar to Samira in design, and I think Yasuo still stands out as the best melee AD carry. Now, penultimate champion of the year, Udyr rework, straight into S. I absolutely love the rework that Riot did for this. All they've done with Udyr rework is they've significantly leveled up his previous design, modernised it, and also made it fit in way more with the lore and the world of Runeterra. Not only does it fit the lore, it also kind of fits his character identity as a shaman. Basically, when Udyr uses a spell, every 40 seconds, which can be lowered if he auto-attacks, every now and again Udyr is able to ramp up and awaken his kind of like ability. So perhaps he's channeling the Cryo Phoenix, his ultimate, his R. He can awaken that ability, he can kind of like ascend maybe, that's a good way to put it. And that ability then gets leveled up. I love that. I think that's a fantastic way to represent this character in League, and I think his design is brilliant. Definitely S tier for me. By far the best champion released this year in terms of gameplay. Okay, K'Sante, final champion of the year, is going into B. Now, I like K'Sante a lot. I like his champion design, but I think similar to Bel'Veth, he's not really anything special. He feels like a tanky bruiser kind of guy, but he doesn't really stand out in-game as someone that's going to take over a game or has like a huge impact. He's kind of still sat middling. Now, give me 6 months, my opinion might change. He might go up to A, he might go up to C, but I don't see him as an S tier champion just yet. His kit is fairly straightforward. He's got a few dashes here and there, and whilst his gameplay loop kind of represents the lore quite well, I'm not really fully sold on it yet. So yeah, K'Sante is going in B. Next up, I'm going to be ranking the champions based on the impact they're going to have on the MMO and the world of Runeterra. So we're moving Zeri up into A tier for this one. Zeri is going to be a fantastic addition to the world of the Riot MMO, and I'll kind of go into it now very briefly. I think Zeri is going to be how the player interacts with Zorn in the MMO. She's kind of like Echo, she's a good guy. She's one of the good characters in Zorn, and whilst I think Riot would have a missed opportunity to not allow the players to interact with the Chem Barons. I think going through Zorn with Zeri is going to be a really unique and fresh perspective. The player will be allowed to see the real hurt that the Zorn culture can bring the people of it. And Zeri's character is going to be fighting against that a lot in the MMO, hopefully. I'm really excited to explore Zorn with Zeri. That kind of prospect is what is quite exciting to me, and that is why she's ranked so highly. Speaking of Zorn, and kind of how the players can explore, Renata. Perhaps no surprise to anyone, going straight into S tier. Renata is such a great character. I love her addition to Zorn. I love the fact that she's kind of basically the new big bad of Zorn. It's fantastic. You think you couldn't get any better than Singed or any better than Warwick or, I don't know, Dr. Mundo. But no, now we have Renata. She's going to be, in my opinion, probably one of the final bosses of Zorn. Her minions and her control over the city is untapped, basically. And for me personally, I'm a sucker for villains. So having Renata as S tier is kind of a no-brainer because of that. I think she's going to be definitely a threat to the player and perhaps a really big part of the world, which we'll come to see when we play the game. Okay, going on to Belveth now. Now, putting Belveth into A, perhaps a bit higher than some expected, because Belveth's kind of sat dormant right now. She's not doing that much in the world. But I'm talking more about her potential for the Riot MMO. Belveth definitely feels like the penultimate raid boss, or the ultimate raid boss even. Similar to Zolani was for the Darkin raid, or Aatrox is for the Darkin raid, or even Renata for perhaps a Zorn raid. These are all characters that are going to be the enemies that the players are facing, and Belveth's kind of power is unknown, it's untapped, and I think there's lots of potential for her in the world of the Riot MMO. So yeah, overall, I love Belveth. I think her potential to be a great villain is definitely there, but it's not as good as Renata because we don't know as much about the character and it's not as fully realised just yet. Okay, moving on to Neither. Fortunately for Neither, she's staying right down there in D tier. I'm really not a fan of how this character was introduced into the world. I think there needed to be a lot more kind of built up around her to make her feel significant, but right now she just feels like somebody that's a throwaway. I could see her potentially around the player whilst they're exploring the MMO, but because she doesn't have kind of like a goal, or sorry, she has a goal, but because she doesn't have a significant goal in the world, she kind of feels a little bit out of place. Her motives aren't really there either, so yeah, she's staying in D for me. Udyr. Unfortunately, Udyr's going in C for this one. I don't think Udyr's impact on Runeterra, or even Freljord, is that great, to be honest. Whilst it's a great character to kind of like unlock the story of the Freljordian gods, he doesn't really bring much to the other main story in Freljord, which is that of the different tribes. So the fact that he didn't kind of bring anything there, he's kind of not really doing that much for me. Riot didn't choose to develop his story any further with his release either, so we don't have anything new going for us there even to kind of imagine him in the world of the League. So right now he's staying at C for me. Whilst Cassandre could go into S if his potential is fully utilised in the MMO, we don't quite know what Riot does plan to do with this character. So for me right now, he's staying in A for his impact in the world. I love Nazuma, as I've spoken about in a previous video. And I love Cassandre's potential in the world. And I think he's going to be a great character that the player will eventually get to interact with. But he's not up there for S, because a lot of my thoughts to do with Cassandre is speculation, whereas Renata feels like she fits really easily into the world of Runeterra. Okay, penultimate tier list now. We're going to be moving on to whether I think Riot fully delivered on the promise of the champion. That might not make too much sense, but as I kind of explain my thoughts for each character, it should hopefully become clearer as to what I mean with that. So, we're starting off with Zeri, and Zeri's going straight into B. Zeri's potential was kind of as this rogue-like, electric zapping, electrifying, fast-paced AD carry, and I think gameplay-wise she's definitely met that, but I think in the lore she could have perhaps been more involved with the overarching story of Zorn, I think. And it's a shame she wasn't released last year with Arcane. I think she would have fit much better into kind of like the landscape of things then. But obviously Zeri was delayed, which is why she was released in early Jan. She's not any higher than B because I think she's fine. I think Riot did a good job with her, and that's about it really. So yeah, that's why she's in B for me. She's kind of there, but she's not great. So Renata is going into S tier. For me, the reason why I'm putting Renata S here is because her gameplay fully represents her character in the game. So let me explain what I mean by that. Through storytelling, you can kind of understand the character, but you don't even need to do that with Renata. You can look at her abilities in-game, and you can understand what kind of character she is. She pushes characters away with her Q. She holds them in place, she restrains them, knocks them into each other. She's able to control people. Her W, Bailout, used to buff characters, make them stay alive, used to make them go insane and push forwards and kind of like protect her, become like a pawn for her almost. Her E keeps people at distance with her. It slows people, confuses people, the mist. does damage to people, also shields people as well, so damaging people but also healing people as well. And her role, obviously, turning enemies on each other, mind controlling enemies. She's so well fully realised, I think, and it's a fantastic addition. Now, obviously, I'm a bit biased because I love the character lore and I kind of like the character design as well. But yeah, I think Riot did a fantastic job with Renata. Now, with F going into C, I think she could have been a lot better. One of my main complaints with Belveth is that she doesn't actually feel very voidy. You could almost take the character design, put a new coat of paint over it, and there you go, you've got a Ionian character, for example. I don't know, that's an example, right? She doesn't really, outside of her unique void mechanic, her abilities don't feel all too voidy. The void coral thing is kind of cool with her passive, but again, that could be kind of like translated into something else, like a mechanic thing. I think with what Riot teases us, Belveth kind of doesn't really deliver on that full promise. And while yes, she's a great villain and she has great potential in the world, I'm not sure she was fully realised as a character design in League, and I think she could have been a little bit better. Okay, moving on to Nia now. Now, surprisingly, Nia's not at C tier for this one. I'm going to put Nia at B. The reason I made this choice is because Riot didn't have that much to do with her, really. I think they were kind of accepting of that. They went into her with being a melee AD carry. That was kind of the concept of the design. A replacement for players who like to play Yasuo, but in the bot lane. But that's about it. So yeah, she works as that. There's not really that much more to her. I don't think Riot had any ideas with her. And yeah, she's solid. She could have been much worse, I think. I like how Riot made her a little bit unique, but obviously neither could have been much better. So yeah, that's why she's going to go B. For this one, I'm going to put Udyr at A. The only reason Udyr is not S here is because we didn't get more lore to do with him. That is my biggest gripe. I think gameplay-wise, he fully met his potential. I think Riot did a fantastic job with him, but they kind of under-delivered on the story aspect of the character. And finally, K'Sante. Putting K'Sante straight into S. I love this character. I think Riot did a great job, kind of with this tank top lane that from Shurima. Of all the things they could have done with him, they could have stuck a random monster character again like Rammus. No, they've gone for a human at that. So not only is he very powerful, they've kind of made him more grounded by showing that he's just trained his way up there. They fully fleshed out his backstory, fully brought in a new world, and I think his kit does a great job of kind of representing both Nazuma, K'Sante's character, and also his lore, with how he wields the Cobra Lions, kind of like Natofos, after he took it down. So yeah, K'Sante's S for me, up there with Renata. Okay, so I've spoken in great length about all of these characters at this point, but I'm going to do one final overall ranking of these characters. You can probably guess where someone they're going to sit based on my previous responses, but I'm going to get into it anyway. Okay, Zeri's going to be at A. I think if we didn't have all the issues with the character throughout the year, I think Zeri was a shoo-in for an S. But yeah, I think her champion design let her down a little bit, just because of how unbalanced she was. So surprising no one, Renata's going into S. I think Renata's been one of the best characters for Riot's recent years. She's not only a fantastic lore addition, her gameplay was a very cool niche, and also she has great and unique mechanics. Okay, Belveth going into B. I like Belveth a lot. I think she's a cool character, but she kind of feels a little bit underutilised and a little bit like Riot didn't really reach their full potential with her. Whilst I think her MMO potential to be a really cool boss is great, she's not fully there yet in the League, unlike Renata. Now, Nia's going into C. I think putting her into D would be too harsh, but she's really lacklustre in terms of what we got this year from her. She's definitely the worst champion of the year. I think her design kind of maybe puts her a little bit above some of the other weak champions that we've had in the past, but she doesn't really have all too much going for her. There's not many champions I would put in D, but Nia's definitely towards the lower end of C. Udyr's going to go in at B+. Now the reason he's not any higher is because I really think he's limited by his lore, his story, and also how he impacts the world with the Riot MMO. Gameplay would be up here, but everything else needs to be taken into fact, and for that, he can't really go above a B+, I don't think, for me. He doesn't really bring that much to the world of League, which is kind of what I'm going to focus on from now on, because obviously I'm looking forward to the Riot MMO. And yeah, he kind of feels like a bit of a filler character in that sense. So for me, he can't really go any higher than a B+, which is a shame because I really love his character design. And then final ranking, K'Sante, gonna go above Zeri in A tier for me. I think it's a fantastic addition to the game. He feels very unique and fresh, much like a lot of the characters this year, to be honest. Especially these three up here, very unique and kind of bring new things to the game. As for why he sits there, I think it's mostly because of his lore and his story and what he's going to bring to the world of Runeterra, I think is so exciting. I think it has so much potential. So that's been my tier list of 2022. This has been a really long video, so I thank you if you stuck through to the end. I've quite enjoyed doing this in kind of this video content, but maybe I'll stream this next year if we get a bunch of new champions, which I'm hoping for. Anyway, I'm hoping that's what happens. So stick around for this next year. Leave a like if you enjoyed and made it to the end of the video, and please subscribe because I'm trying to grow my channel as much as I can for when the Riot MMO does eventually release. Okay, thank you for sticking around and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.